All right, this is the fourth session of the special meeting of the Finance Committee. The time allowed is from 6:10 p.m. to 6:50 p.m. Once again, I would like to welcome Secretary Financial Services and the Treasury and his colleagues. They are attending for this session on public finance. So over to the Secretary for a short introduction. Chairman and members, this session of the special meetings of the Finance Committee will be examining the estimate of Treasury branch and related parties. The Treasury branch oversees several programs which cover revenue and financial control, provision of central support services within the government, and maintenance of government properties. Before the question session begins, I wish to highlight a few points. Estimate by program. The estimated total recurrent expenditure for three programs for 2014-15 is estimated at $8.01514 billion, with about $4.7 billion on revenue and financial control and about $2.4 billion on provision of central support services within the government and about $900 million on maintenance of government properties. Key areas of work in the coming year. First, the Working Group on Long-Term Fiscal Planning released its report on the 3rd of March. According to its analysis, the government's overall fiscal position in the short to medium term remains healthy. In the long term, however, if government expenditure growth keeps outpacing revenue growth, a structural deficit will be inevitable. We must seek to bolster economic growth and align the growth rates of government revenue and government expenditure so as to maintain the fiscal discipline enshrined in Article 107 of the Basic Law. The Working Group recommends that the government should adopt a multi-pronged approach to keep promoting economic development on the one hand and take a series of fiscal measures on the other. In the coming year, we'll conduct a more concrete analysis and assessment on the proposed fiscal measures in collaboration with the Working Group to facilitate further consideration. Second, on tax agreements and exchange of information, EOI, it remains our policy priority to strive to expand Hong Kong's network of comprehensive avoidance of double taxation agreements, or CDTAs, to cover Hong Kong's major trading and investment partners. We continue to take forward our work in this regard. Moreover, we reckon the latest international standard on EOI for tax purposes that a jurisdiction should make available both CDTA and Tax Information Exchange Agreement, or TIEA, as instruments for exchange of information, EOI. With the enactment of the relevant legislation in July last year, Hong Kong is able to enter into standalone TIEAs with other jurisdictions where necessary. We'll follow up on this area of work. Thirdly, with the growing aspiration of the international community on enhancing tax transparency and strengthening tax cooperation, review the EOI arrangements in Hong Kong in the light of experience gained under CDTAs and TIEAs. The government will continue to engage local stakeholders and address relevant policy and legal issues with a view to developing a sustainable model of EOI for Hong Kong. Fourthly, to prevent cost recovery items being turned into heavily subsidized items, all policy bureaus and departments reviewed their respective fees and charges. Last year, we reviewed fees and charges which did not directly affect people's livelihood. We'll review other fees and charges this year, including water charges, which has not been revised for 19 years, the fees for use of leisure facilities and services, and charges relating to environmental hygiene services. In reviewing the fees and charges, we shall take into account factors including the specific circumstances of services provided, public affordability and acceptability, and the views of the Legislative Council members before making proposals for fee revisions. All government departments will also strictly control costs and reduce the need for increasing fees and charges as far as possible. Fifthly, we'll continue to relocate those government offices which are non-location bound from core business districts as far as possible to help providing additional commercial floor area. Upon completion of the new Trade and Industry Tower at the Kai Tak Development Area by mid-2015, the Trade and Industry Department Tower site in Mong Kok will be released for commercial use. We are also proceeding with the phased relocation of departments in the three government office buildings in the Wan Chai district. The construction of West Kowloon Government offices in Yau Ma Tei is expected to commence next year for completion in 2018-19, providing a total net operational floor area of about 11,000 square meters for reprovisioning some of the departments currently accommodated in the 3 government office buildings at the Wan Chai waterfront, thus releasing the floor area for commercial use. Planning is all underway for the construction of other replacement government office buildings in Chaw San Wan, Kai Tak Development Area, and Tseung Kwan O. Subject to resources available, the works project are expected to be rolled out from 2017-18 onwards. Chairman, my colleagues and I are happy to answer questions from members here. Does any members who would like to speak? We have so far 7 members who have indicated a wish to speak. Each member is given 4 minutes for questions and answers. Please, when you raise your question, please raise questions related to the questions marked with TSY in brackets. Mr. Kenneth Leung, my question is about TSY 097. In 7.47, paragraph 7.47 in the working group's report on long-term fiscal planning, because it's difficult to plan for priorities. So the working group has no concrete proposal on the use of the proposed future fund. In the budget, the FS, however, said in paragraph 143, and in no uncertain terms, that the future fund will be the backup if the government is continuously in the red, suffering from deficit, so that infrastructure projects can be carried out on a sustainable basis. This seems to be in contradiction. Do you have a future fund for infrastructure in the traditional sense? Or are you going to have the future fund investing in different areas? And what is meant by the strategic infrastructural projects? Are they just examples? Or is the future fund a fund for infrastructure projects, roads, bridges, and so on and so forth? Can you tell us what is going to be the purpose of the future fund? Where are you going to spend money on? Secretary, the working group proposes the setting up of a future fund to save up money to prepare for rainy days. The working group has not proposed specific uses of the future fund, but there are some suggestions as to the direction. When you have saved some money, what purposes can be put? If in the future, with recurrent expenditure continues to rise, and you need to make financial provisions for this, a fund may not be the most suitable means to provide funding in the recurrent sense. So the future fund is not going to be used for recurrent projects, but for time-limited projects that may be more appropriate, because a defined fund cannot cope with a continuous or long-term need. So it's worth our while to consider using the fund on infrastructure projects, because they are all one-off in nature, and we're not just talking about roads and bridges. They can also cover the hospitals and other projects that would improve people's livelihood, to develop our economy in a sustainable manner, and to improve people's livelihood. We may wish to use the fund to carry out projects, even in the context of a government suffering from deficits. These are just some ideas. We consult people at the appropriate moment.
Mr. Wong Kwok Heng, thank you. Chairman, I have 2 questions for the Secretary. First, in relation to Head 147, Government Secretariat, there's an electricity tariff subsidy scheme. Now, there is no such scheme already, electricity charges subsidy scheme. However, the balance could be spent in the coming 3 years. For many elders, they may not spend more than $50 in electricity, so they still have a balance, and it has to be spent within 3 years' time. Either you are forcing the elders to deplete that subsidy, and this is not good for the environment and resources. So will you consider allowing such households to keep their balance until it is fully used up? There is no extra expenditure on the part of the government is already written off, so will you consider this? And secondly, Head 76 regarding tax survey. Now, we've got the BSD and SSD already approved. And the IRD is asking buyers holding a permanent resident ID card to do a declaration in a solicitor's firm. So even if you're holding an ID card with 3 stars, this is not good enough. A declaration is required. Is it really necessary? And it is reported that the original copy of the declaration is needed. This is rather unnecessary because they have to spend extra legal charges. So can you please make yourself friendly to the people and don't ask them to go through unnecessary procedures and pay unnecessary fees. First, the electricity for charges subsidy scheme. The design is such that most households can benefit, and the period is long enough for over 90% of the household to exhaust the whole amount of subsidy. Only the minority will not be able to use it up. I think there is still time left for households to have balance in the subsidy scheme to use up the subsidy. So it will be at least the 30th of June 2016. So the scheme is designed in such a way that there is sufficient time for households to use up all the subsidy in the scheme. ILD, thank you. The statutory declaration under the BSD buyer is required to make a statutory declaration. I think it involves 2 areas. First, to prove that he is a permanent resident of Hong Kong, and second, he has to declare that he is acting for himself, not on behalf of any other person, before he can be free from the BSD. So this was already made known to members when the BC scrutinized the bill, and once the bill was enacted, the relevant information has been uploaded to our website. The statutory declaration need not be done in front of a lawyer. It can be done at the district office, and there is no need to submit the original copy. So long as it is a certified copy, then it will suffice. Mr. Tan Kah Pew. Reply 072 and 21-13. Now, we were concerned about underestimation of government revenue. So there's at least a discrepancy of $593 billion, and because of that, over $200 billion sweeteners were handed out, goodies were handed out. So I'd like to ask whether there's been any study conducted because of this over-conservative estimate in revenue. Government services might suffer in terms of quantity and quality. I'd like to know whether any such study has been done. An underestimation of $593 billion. Now, the administration has been very conservative. Now, if we have more infrastructure projects, I'm sure we can benefit the economy and because of new railways, and to take care of this 2.8% growth in the coming years, the government is talking about a future fund. I'd like to know whether any legislative amendment or any legislation is needed in order to establish the fund. Thank you. Every year, when we prepare the draft estimates, we will consider the economic growth rate and also a financial capability in working out the budget for the government. Well, we might have underestimated the revenue, but that doesn't mean that we must have suppressed the expenditure, because we want a normal growth for our expenditure. Looking back, apart from recurrent expenditure, we also have got non-recurrent expenditure to provide relief to the disadvantaged, and very often they are used as counter-cyclical measures. Starting from 2008, the world as well as Hong Kong's economy is in a rather weak state, and counter-cyclical measures are therefore needed. And our recurrent expenditure will grow gradually, and non-recurrent expenditure would also be introduced in the light of the economic situation. As for the future fund, it is a preliminary idea, and we still have to assess and consider the details and the direction. So you have not decided whether a legislative framework is needed. The format and the use and function of the fund is still in an conceptual stage. We've been given such an idea by the working group, and I think some observations warrant our attention as regards how the fund should be established or operated, and the use. Well, we still take more time to consider. So there's the possibility that eventually you're not going to do anything about it. Well, all possibilities can't be ruled out, but we should set store by the recommendations of the working group. Dr. Priscilla Le. In para 3A, the Secretary mentioned the fiscal discipline enshrined in Article 107 of the Basic Law, and Article 108 also requires Hong Kong to remain a low-tax regime. So, para D, is to prevent cost recovery items being turned into heavily subsidized items. Of course, I agree that in the long term we must recover costs for services so that we don't have to pay more taxes. However, for some long-term expenditure, political aspirations will cause high expenditure for livelihood matters. Can we turn, say, infrastructure or medical and healthcare into industries, and retirement? How can we make retirement provisions and industry so that it is not just an expenditure? And what about the silver-haired market? They are also consumers. Those who are over 60 years old can continue to contribute to the economy. They can still be productive. How can we invest in this sector so that we can alleviate the expenditure burden in this regard? by turning these into various industries, perhaps we can offset some of the long-term recurrent expenditure. The working group has conducted analysis to start this discussion. When faced with an aging population, how should the whole community face up to the challenge? This is not just about the administration, because resources of the administration come from the community. So Dr. Leung asked whether we can use some market forces to satisfy these demands. I think we should consider these possibilities, whether we talk about the great silver-haired market or the need for medical and healthcare services. Can we use market forces to lessen our expenditure? Yes, this can be considered. We have to understand that government resources come from taxpayers. To maintain a low-tax regime, we have to ensure how we can satisfy the various demand for government expenses with limited resources. I think from the FSTB's point of view, this is something we have to consider very carefully. Dr. Priscilla Leung is currently saying that we should make savings, we should open up new income, and we should see how we can meet these resources. Well, in other countries, when there is a deficit, well, that is in future generations, should there be a deficit in the government, it will be mainly by lending or by raising taxes manyfold. So can you tell us categorically that, well, we are subject to the restraints in the Basic Law, so increasing taxes substantially is not an option because of the Basic Law? Yes, I agree that there is such a requirement in the Basic Law for us to maintain a low taxation regime so as to maintain our competitiveness. So we have to understand that we face many constraints. Mr. Cham Kam Lam. Thank you, Chairman. I've got a question, but I've forgotten the reply serial number. I think it's also asked by many colleagues. That is about increase in tobacco tax or duty. I know in the past couple of years, we have seized a lot of smuggled cigarettes, illicit cigarettes. And the Customs and Excise has increased resources and manpower to seize illicit cigarettes. And we have seen 1 or 2 increases in tobacco duty. We have proposed increase this year. Every time when the government introduces such a measure, it would claim that they would like to have less smokers in Hong Kong. We agree to this principle, but the result is also that we need more customs and excise resources, and we have more illicit cigarettes. And we've also seen more cigarettes imported in Hong Kong with a duty paid up. So is it really an effective measure? I hope the administration to have a comprehensive review. The FS has announced a duty increase for cigarettes, but most smokers are rather happy. They were expecting a bigger hike. So you may not be able to achieve your policy intent. I'd like to know whether such a review has been done. Secretary, I think it is under the portfolio of the Food and Health Bureau. Perhaps the Commissioner for Customs and Excise can take this question. Speaker is off mic. I apologize, the mic was not on yet. Yes, I'd like to explain to members. According to our information, according to information we've got, there have been various measures to encourage smokers to quit smoking, such as counseling services and the adjustment of no smoking zones. Our members have heard that the percentage of smokers in the population has dropped to 10%, an all-time low. So I think all our measures introduced in the past have paid off. Mr. Chen talked about resources for the Customs and Excise to crack down on illicit cigarettes. It's true that we have got 61 officers responsible for this task, and we've been adjusting our strategies. First, for combating illicit cigarettes, we used to conduct operations on the streets. We have now moved up to midstream and higher stream. For instance, some black spots on the streets, and also we crack down along the railway line. The number of cases reported has dropped from 900 odd cases to 800 cases, a drop of 7%. However, illicit cigarettes seized grow by 20%. From 69 million odd sticks to 83 million odd sticks. So you see our strategy has been effective. We are using existing resources to reap bigger outcome, and we have enhanced our cost effectiveness and increased the risk of these unscrupulous elements. Mr. Wang Leung-Chi-Chun.
I want to ask a follow-up question to Ms. Priscilla Leung, and that is how can we explore sources of revenue to maintain our fiscal stability. There was a previous study on GST, Goods and Services Tax, which is practiced elsewhere, and it's a fair tax. The government make a proposal for GST, but then it fell through, and there was no more study on it. Of course, some people raise objection, and they are opposed to GST. It may have to do with the way that it was promoted. It gave people the impression that the price would be pushed up very significantly. Would this be reconsidered? Secretary? Well, GST is a tax mentioned by many people. A few years ago, it was considered by the government. Ms. Priscilla Leung mentioned that we are a low-tax territory, and how can we increase revenue? Then the introduction of a new tax is a logical move. And the working group on the long-term fiscal planning mentioned the fact that we have fewer tax types than other jurisdictions. We have a narrow tax base. And many jurisdictions have GST or value-added tax, but we don't. So this is considered worthy of consideration. We are going to conduct some internal studies and assessment. To explore new sources of revenue, we need to carry out detailed study first before presenting our views. Ms. Emily Lau, Deputy Chairman. Chairman, I want to raise a question about paragraph 3E of the Secretary's speech. And it said that some government officers would be relocated from core business districts so as to release more space for commercial use. We know there's a shortage of core business district commercial premises. So you are relocating these offices to other districts. And you mentioned a term, non-location bound government offices. What do you mean by this? Because previously when there was the proposal to have CGO located here, some people said that there was no need for CGO to be built here in a core business district. We shouldn't have been here. We shouldn't have had our buildings here. Secretary, well, the policy was announced a few years ago on relocating government offices. I just don't see how this can be implemented. Maybe I can ask my permanent secretary to say something about the details of relocation. Well, this is a big move. We're talking about the 3 buildings in Wan Chai, more than 20 departments, and 10,000 civil servants are working there. We started to plan for the relocation a few years ago. First, we are going to build the West Kowloon government offices. Some departments will move to the new government offices. We have also consulted the panel on financial affairs, rather. And we're going to do a tendering exercise and seek funding approval from this council. Some departments will move to Kai Tak or Tseung Kwan O. So quite a few initiatives are required. We want to release the commercial land in Wan Chai for other uses. We are on a prime site. If you did not build the CGO here on this prime site, we don't need to relocate these departments. They are just a few blocks away. So is this really something in contradiction to the policy? Well, that was announced by the FS in 2007, 08 or 09. It was expected that we need to release more land in Central, and the government should take the lead. And it took a long time in planning. Do you understand what I'm saying, Chairman? Well, you did not release this prime site to for commercial use. Instead, you try to relocate existing offices. Are you not spending money for no obvious advantage? You were not with us. We asked you not to build a CGO here. It's odd. It's also considered odd by the market. They are not allowed to use this prime site, and now you want to relocate some other offices for their use. I'm talking about 027. This is about uncertificated securities, and also the do away with printing, and ask about which 3 departments have the highest amount of printer matters. The government only tell us the weight in kilograms, in tons, in metric tons only, but there was no breakdown on the kind of printer matters printed by departments. I don't understand. Government departments have to submit forms to print anything. You cannot just give us the total tonnage. For example, EPD and the Environment Bureau, have they been printing more and more publications? say for 2016 and 2017 per constitutional development consultation, how many copies were printed? So do you think we should get a list of publications before you can give us the number of copies or the amount of paper used? I'll ask my colleague Ms. Chen to take this question. We have someone from the Government Logistics Department. I've just got my switch on. I'd like to thank Mr. Chen Chi-chun for this question. Why is it that we give you the overall figure instead of by departments? If you want to monitor the government whether there's a decreasing trend in the use of paper, because if the tonnage is decreasing, it means that the amount of paper use is also decreasing. We are not able, it's difficult to give you figures by departments, but there are common materials, common forms, or if we print the budget or the policy address, we cannot have a breakdown for different departments. There's simply no breakdown figures. Since members want us to tell you whether the amount of printed matters is decreasing, we have this electronic platform. Many consultation documents are already in the electronic form, but still we have printed material because many people are not able to access the internet. Not everyone has a computer. I've just 30 seconds left. For the budget or the policy address, you cannot have a breakdown. But what about others? Are you going to do this in the future? What are the difficulties? If your members think that this is important, the figures are important, we can see how we can provide further breakdown. But I can tell you that very often we cannot provide breakdown figures. If you want to monitor the trend of printed material used in departments, we can provide overall figures. There are two more members. We would have to exceed our time a little bit. I beg your for your forbearance. Mr. Lee, I want to talk about the report of the Working Group on Long-Term Fiscal Planning. I think it's good that the FS set up the working group, and now a report has been released so that the public can have a discussion. Whether you agree or not, is a healthy discussion. The work of the working group, I hope, will continue. I note that in your speech, you talk about what you are going to do in the coming year, and you said we would conduct a more concrete analysis and assessment of the proposed fiscal measures in collaboration with the working group to facilitate further consideration. My concern is that you should promote the economy instead of trying to broaden the tax base as the first move. It's going to be politically difficult just to increase revenue. How about promoting economic growth in collaboration with the work of the working group? Secretary, the working group is tasked to analyze the long-term fiscal planning and the trend of expenditure and revenue. We also asked the working group to come up with policy recommendations. And that's why they have proposed things such as a future fund and also how to prioritize expenditure on government expenditure. Of course, the working group looks at the trend, the direction, and the planning. and it would require more to be done to implement measures by the government. As for the future fund, we believe we would have to go back to the working group to seek its view on some direction. Well, the working group cannot take the place of the government because it all boils down to the taking up of more measures by the government to implement the recommendations. For the long-term problems identified by the working group, they touch on many areas such as population policy. So we hope different departments and different councils and committees can provide us with more views on long-term planning and population policy.
And after the working group has published its report, I note that the comments in the community, there is just a passive forecast. I'd like to know whether the format of the working group is similar to other organizations, and whether other places are using the same approach to forecast the long-term fiscal situation. Well, the working group is not here, although the chairman of the working group is here. I think on another occasion, such as in an FA panel meeting, I can discuss with you in greater details. I'm of the view that the analysis is very scientific with a lot of backup from data. So the working group is not selecting the best scenario, rather it's just done an analysis for the public discussion. Dr. Fernando Cheung, my question is on the future fund. Whether we talk about the FS budget or the working group on long-term fiscal planning, the future fund is an eye-catching proposal. Now, because of the aging population, the demography will change the productivity of the community, and there will also be increased demand for public services, leading for budget fiscal deficit in the long run, and therefore we should save up for the future, and we call it the future fund for the time being. Many colleagues are concerned about how the future fund will be used and what will be its mode of operation. And the administration's reply is to be confirmed. This is very strange. The secretary said that the working group was very scientific and rational and backed up with hard data, and the recommendations should have good justifications. So we're not told how the future fund will operate and how it will be used. So what is the difference from money being kept in our reserve? Every year, our surplus is put in our reserves for rolling forward. Of course, and the reserves are kept by the government, and if money has to be spent from it, LegCo's approval is needed. We're worried that with the establishment of the future fund, will LegCo be bypassed? However, when we asked for the future operation and also the future use, the reply we got is to be confirmed. So, will it be a convenient way for the administration to hide some of its savings or private money, so that we won't have the impression that the government has got huge surplus, when in fact the government is becoming richer and richer. According to the report, in the coming decade, if we set aside 1/3 of our surplus, then the future fund together with the land fund will grow to $500 billion, which is a very handsome figure. So is it a way to hide our public reserves. So what is the point of having the future fund? I want the Secretary to explain. Secretary, Dr. Zhang, you asked a very good question. But according to the working group, they believe that the government may see deficit in its finances in the future, and therefore we should make savings in the form of a future fund, and should there be a deficit, that the future fund can be released to tie over the difficult times. So when we are able to, we should be prepared for the future. And I think this is just a very simple logic. There is no question of the government hiding away money. Everything is transparent. It is crystal clear how many pockets the government has, and also how much money is in each pocket. However, in the light of a possible fiscal deficit, we just want to make saving plans at an earlier stage so that we can be more flexible in dealing with future scenarios. Thank you. We've completed the 4th session. Thank you very much for your attendance. We'll resume tomorrow.